A recent report from the Federal Trade Commission showed that older Americans, those ages 60 and older, lost over $2.4 billion in 2024. How? Investment scams. Stay tuned to learn more. You're listening to Next Chapter Living with our host, Stephen Sabo. Stephen is a financial advisor with Executive Financial Group. You can learn more at executivefinancialgroup.com. 2.4 billion with a B, Stephen, lost due to scams.
Yes.
So today we're talking fraud awareness.
Yeah, that's a crazy number, but it's just anymore. And I've been dealing with it recently. Just people are so afraid to send anything online. You know, everything is moving towards the digital world.
Right.
Yet recently we've had numerous people asking, can we sign paper forms of this? Can I put this, and all these companies are pushing us away from that.
Right.
Yet we have the opposite going on with our clientele asking us because, every day it seems, and I get them from companies. Hey, we had a data breach, your social, your fingerprint, your eye scan, everything is gone. Here's 12 months free of like a credit monitoring service. Oh, by the way, you have to put in all that information that was just taken in to sign up for it.
Right. Right.
So,
and I think especially with, AI and, like anything, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad depending on the user behind it. And we hear these horror stories, and we do live in a digital age. My oldest son just shocked us all last night because he's like, do you know how much you can find about yourself or really anybody online? I was like, I've never really thought about it. And then you look and you can find like where they live and how much their house sold, like all of this stuff. And you're like, that's terrifying. And I think I live a pretty non-digital life. I'm not actively out there posting my life. And yet all of this is available about me. And then you hear these horror stories, even back during the Masters, because it was a no phones allowed at the Masters.
Yep.
Somehow, somebody somewhere got a hold of the list of who would be there. And they were making calls to the loved ones of the people in attendance saying that they had been arrested and they don't have their phone. And you need to send X amount of dollars in bail money. And because you couldn't have your phone at the Masters, if they tried to call, hey, honey, I'm trying to call and verify this, they weren't getting anything other than voicemail. And so people lost money. How do we be reasonable in this? What's the fine line between we need to be informed and protect ourselves versus, go hide under the mattress?
Well, and it is difficult, and it's so difficult amongst the different age ranges. And it's not just older people that are being scammed, but typically that's who we see are being targeted. And, they're not quite as great with technology. And, so you just have to, it's funny. We have a handful of clients that, where some of our clients are older, they're kind of rural, they have a computer, but maybe they rarely use it, or they don't have a computer. But it's funny. We have a handful of clients that still have landlines, believe it or not.
I believe it. I grew up in rural Maine.
And so, as goofy as it is, my sister and I will laugh every once in a while, but you'll call their landline, and a few of them have this service where it's like, press 8 if you are not a telemarketer. Maybe something as simple as that kind of helps weed some of that stuff out.
Sure.
But we're on the lookout all the time. We always tell our clients, hey, if something sounds too good to be true, it typically is. And if somebody's pressuring you to do something, tell them that your financial advisor, you have to go through them first, right? Before you make this decision. They're mean, and they're going to yell at me if I don't go through them, because, most of the time we find out whenever it's too late. And, unfortunately there's, sometimes there's not a lot that we can do to help somebody out. And so we really want to make sure that, I have countless examples. I'll wait until till we get into the episode to tell you about some, but we have so many different examples of this happening, and we really just try to tell people to be on the lookout. They're going to you're going to be targeted, and if something sounds fishy, don't be pressured into doing it. If you're getting a phone call, we had a client, for instance, that called us and said, "Oh my gosh, I need to take out $80,000 from my account." And we said, "What? Okay. What's going on? Is everything
Right.
okay?" "Well, I got a call and the IRS says that I owe them $80,000. And if I don't, they're sending somebody here later today and I'm going to jail."
Mm.
And so you think about that and you say, this is silly. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, they can be pretty convincing. And when somebody is like, what did I do? Oh, it's the IRS. This is a big government agency. I've got to do this. And so it happens. But, fortunately, she came to us first and we said,
Right.
that's a scam. Don't fall for that. You're not, we are taking 80,000 so that you can pay the IRS, so
Right.
you don't go to jail this afternoon. But it happens.
And the thing is that they are so convincing. I've received that
Mm-hmm.
same telephone call about you owe back taxes and
Yep.
your file, has been unpaid. And if you don't make a payment, call and make a payment
Yeah.
today. And it sounds very legitimate until you go online and you realize, okay, wait, the IRS won't do anything over the phone. They're going to
Yes.
send something in writing. And
That's
chances
right.
are, if there's truly an issue, it's going to be in a certified mail that you'll receive it because
Yes.
they want to track that you've done it. And so then you go, okay, this isn't legitimate. I'm not going to call it back. But they create this false sense of urgency or
Right.
that in a lot of cases that you've done something wrong. And so for the average well-meaning citizen, we don't
Just
want to
trying to,
think that we've done
yeah.
anything wrong. And especially the elderly, now they're preying on the fact that you might not know to
Yeah.
go look and double check your sources. You're just going to call the number back.
Sure. Yeah, no, and it happens all the time. And, you're starting to see it even too with younger people now. Yes, the elderly are always targeted because they feel, that they're an easier target. But it happens to younger clients again all the time. And not even just government agencies or somebody getting you in trouble. We had a client and she called us and she said, you're going to be mad at me. And I said, oh, what's going on? What's up? And she works nighttime at a hospital. And so it was slow. It's in a rural part. She gets bored. I'm sure she's on her phone. Well,
Sure.
she had befriended a woman online. They started talking through whatever it was that they were on. And this lady's really nice at first. She's not asking, blah, blah, blah. But then she starts telling her about her lifestyle and, I'm trading. I forget what it was. She was some sort of gold, had to do with something. And I'm making all this money and look at all these things that I have. And, it starts to eat at this lady, our client. And that would be nice. And I want to retire and I don't have enough. And look at all these things that you're doing. And you're making all this money. And, before you know it, the woman says, give me $5,000. I'll get you into this. And she did. And she didn't have the 5,000 to lose. And then, she starts, then, it's excuses. There's not answering going on and all these things. And, she's, I don't know, mid 50s. So she's not 80 years old. This isn't, and it wasn't from a government thing. This was kind of a, and it, not romantic in the way that they were like, lovers or something.
No,
but
it's the intimacy of feeling like you know somebody. And that's a whole way of approaching it too.
Prior to ever even asking for money, they had probably spent a month or two talking, so it was a slow build. But eventually this woman got $5,000 out of her and she said, what can I do? And I had to tell her and I said, aside from maybe telling the police, things like that, I don't know that there's much that you can do. This was a random person that contacted you online. And, I get it. You think that you haven't saved enough for retirement and this was enticing, but that 5,000, you were behind already.
That just set you back.
Yeah. So, I know that, those things happen. People feel like, well, I'm behind and look, this person's making quick money and I can do it. I want to hurry up. And, again, a lot of those things, they're too good to be true. Yes, people can make money quickly and things can be done. I'd say 99% of the time, somebody is on the losing end of that.
Right.
So it can happen. You can get lucky. You can make money very quickly by doing stuff. Most of the time, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And you just need to be careful.
And I think people forget that it can be somebody that has a sense of connection to you. I
Hmm.
mean, my husband was in his 20s and his identity was stolen, and we didn't
Hmm.
find out about it until 5 years later when we went to buy our first home together because he had.
Yeah.
We didn't have credit card debt. He
Yep.
paid cash for most things. He was doing great. And then we went to do the paperwork for our mortgage, and this credit card that had been open for 5 years and had this huge account that hadn't been paid, huge amount of
Yeah.
money on it. And he's like, I've never opened that card. And so we had to call the credit card company and have a conversation. They're like, no, you opened it on this day and it was your name and it was your social security number and your mother's maiden name. And he's like, but I didn't. And it wasn't until the customer service on the other end said, this is the email address. And it was his former roommate's email address. His former roommate who had access to
Yeah.
overhearing conversations, or, they were friends.
Yeah.
They had been friends for 3 or 4 years, living
Yeah.
together as roommates. And, you think that's somebody you can trust. And yet he had gone behind his
Yeah.
back and stolen his identity and opened up a credit card. So
Yeah.
it's not just, oh, I made a silly mistake and I clicked this button or I said yes to the robocaller on the other end. It can be something that happens
Yeah.
even within a circle of people that you know.
Right.
So, what should we be doing to make sure we're protected?
You really just got to make sure that, everything that you're doing, do it with intention. Make sure that you're not, don't allow anybody to pressure you. Don't allow, if somebody's telling you that they need something or you need to do something by this certain point, typically that's not in your best interest. And so
Right.
you need to be able to look out for those things. You do need to be able to hold close, that information. I get why people don't want to send things over the internet or without
Sure.
some sort of a secure link or anything like that. And even those, so just make sure that that are staying on top of your credit cards, your things like that. Try not to, unless you desperately need to, give them out, even to your children. Sometimes, unfortunately, we've seen where family members have done things to their own family, and so you just need to be diligent about it. Always ask me first, right?
Right.
If you're getting ready to do something, hey, I don't control everything you do, but I might be able to stop something before it happens. And so I might
Right.
say, hey, it sounds weird to me, but if you want to go for it, go for it.
It's at least it's an outside, unbiased set
Yeah.
of,
Hmm.
another set of eyes on what it is that you're looking at.
Right.
You're looking at it from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too, I'm dealing with the situation right now. We had some clients come to us. They were referred to us from, another set of clients. They wanted to do some retirement planning. So we sat down with them and started talking to them about, all their different assets and what you have. And they started to tell us about, a situation where the husband years ago had invested some money. And so this isn't, scams like, hey, the IRS or an intimate relationship or family or anything. This came from a financial kind of standpoint. And so you need to be careful on these things. This guy said, hey, I invested this money. I forget how he kind of got hooked up with it, but somebody else that he knew invested some. And so he said, I'm going to take my money. And he took an old IRA. And there's about $150,000 or $180,000 that he invested in this company. It seemed legitimate. They were out of Las Vegas, and these people were, going to take their money, and then they were investing in big commercial properties out in Las Vegas, right? And so they were offered a return. You're going to get a fixed return on your money. Seems pretty legitimate.
Sure.
And there was a third party, an actual third party, a credible third party that held the money. And this is a big, huge company that holds, alternative assets and IRAs. And
sure.
After a while, the payments that they were supposed to be getting were skipping, and then, okay, so then they came back and then they weren't getting answers, or every time they called, they couldn't talk to the actual person. They were talking to, a secretary. Well, so-and-so will get back to you.
Oh, man.
And after so long, they gave up. And whenever we met them, I'm just not that type of person. But, I said, that's $180,000 you just gave up, but they didn't know what to do. So right now I'm in the process of trying to help them. I had to call the Secretary of State for Nevada
Wow.
and then go to their securities division, and I'm going to help them file a complaint to get the ball rolling. And then from there, if it's deemed worthy of investigation, which it should be, because I've looked up some information. These people did this to numerous people. They got cease and desist letters. They had business licenses taken away. They were fined,
Wow.
thousands and thousands of dollars. But so it's not just these little, buying gift cards for somebody that, hey, says that you should. This seemed like a legitimate financial transaction that dealt with IRA money. So it wasn't just, money that you have sitting in your bank account. These were coming from an old workplace. And so, it can happen to all kinds of people. And unfortunately, I told these people, I'm going to do everything that I can. That's a
chunk of money.
Pains me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there may not be anything that we can do. And so if I can get anything back, it's going to be a win. But, you just have to be careful. If somebody is selling you an investment that seems a little bit, too good to be true, dig into it. Ask them some questions, about where it's going and what they're doing. Look into the business a little bit make sure that you're never writing a check to clients are never going to write a check to Steven Sabo. Right. I'm not going to take that $100,000 in my name and invest it. It's going to a company. I want you to look that company up. I want you to know what it is. So that's something that we would tell clients. Hey, if somebody ever said, okay, we're going to take your $100,000 and invest it, make it out to Mark Smith.
Right.
Well, okay. That doesn't sound very legit. And so we're never going to have anybody doing that. And so, you just have to be careful because even something that seems legitimate, that maybe even has some third party credibility, can be a scam. And so you really have to be careful and, ask questions. If somebody can't answer a question, then
that's a red flag.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to do that because, if I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to have something to back it up. I'm going to say, go ahead. I want you to call this company. I want you to look into them. I want you to know who they are so that you can find out on your own, does this seem legitimate? Because at the end of the day, it can happen no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, no matter seemingly how intelligent you might be or how up in society, it's happened to everybody. And so you really have to be careful. This is, and unfortunately it's ramping up more and more with the technology today. I mean, let's face it, our information's out there.
Right.
So, make sure that you are monitoring your credit reports. Maybe that you do have some sort of a system. Typically people's credit cards nowadays have that built in. But, make sure that you're checking, and make sure who you're giving your information to is somebody that you want to have that information.
And there are things out there even as simple as freezing your credit. I know that's something that my parents did, knowing all their major purchases were done. They weren't looking to qualify for a home. They didn't need to do any major purchases. And they thought if we ever did because of an emergency, we can unfreeze it. But it's a conscious decision so that they didn't have to, at least in terms of credit, or worry about somebody stealing their identity. They were able to make a freeze on that.
Yeah.
So
That's
there are options.
There are a lot of options out there. And so, again, if anybody, we tell our clients all the time, hey, if you need something, if you want resources, if you need, a way to do something, call us, let us know, and we'll point you in the right direction. We can help you out. Or, if somebody's trying to get you to do something, bring it to our attention. Hey, I'm not here to manage every single aspect of your life, and you don't have to listen to me. If I tell you, hey, I think it's a scam and you still want to do it, I can't stop you.
Sure.
But I'm at least going to try and say, hey, look, from my perspective, from my opinion, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's throwing up red flags. I wouldn't do it.
Or
at the
ask these questions before you make the final decision.
Yes. Get me on the phone. Hey, I'm willing to talk to somebody with you if you want. I'll ask the questions. If you aren't sure,
sure,
that's fine, but just check because it's, it can happen. And they're looking for $100, they're looking for $100,000. And, it's easy to fall into that. And a lot of the times there isn't a lot of recourse. So be careful.
Well, as we've heard, staying informed is really one of the strongest defenses you can have against fraud, especially as you're heading for retirement, but really at any age. Our hope is that today's conversation has empowered you to ask the right questions and keep control of the financial future that you've worked so hard to create. Of course, if you're looking for a more in-depth discussion about your individual situation, you can start with a complimentary consultation with Stephen by visiting executivefinancialgroup.com. As always, we are so grateful that you took time to spend it with us, and we hope you'll come back again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, Alyssa. This was a very powerful and informing episode, I think, today, especially just in today's climate. It's always important to make sure that you're watching closely to your finances and just making sure that you know what's going on. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
The opinions expressed by Stephen Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Stephen Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.